Rex Hoggard from the Golf Channel joining us on Halftime. We got to speak to him before the Masters, and now we are speaking to him during the second round of the PGA Championship at Southern Hills in Tulsa. Rex, we appreciate your time, especially right in the middle of the tournament. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm actually hiding inside. It's hot and it's very, very humid, and the wind is howling. So you got me at a good time. I'm hiding from Mother Nature at the moment.
Yeah, I saw the wind is crazy. I mean, that's close to northwest Arkansas. We've had crazy wind there all year long, 40-mile-an-hour gusts, and they apparently at Southern Hills they did not mow the greens because of this. So how is this going to affect today's play?
Yeah, I think that's the first time, according to one official I spoke to this morning, at least in the modern era, that they haven't done this at the PGA Championship, where they didn't mow the greens overnight. Now, keep in mind that this just moved to May a few years ago, and that when it was played in August, the winds usually aren't that big of a deal. So it's a little bit different now, where you end up this time of year, as you pointed out, in this part of the country, you end up with a lot of wind in May. But it is surreal. And I spoke with a couple of players this morning. It was clearly the right move. If balls start moving on the greens because of the wind, they'd have to stop play. So they're trying to avoid that. And I think it gives you an idea of the degree of difficulty of this golf course. I mean, just even without winds, even without rough, even without everything that goes into it, it's just a really hard golf course. And the PGA of America, which runs this championship, is always going to lean on the side of the players. They're always going to err on the side of the players. They're not going to push it to the line, maybe like the U.S. Open does. So they were always going to be safe.
Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered, because so many people have different opinions on how, especially majors, should be ran. I am more of a, I want to see birdies. I want to see high scores. I want to see these pros look like pros. And then when you get to the U.S. Open, you get the, bring them back down, make them look like human, make them look like they're a guy with, they're guys out on a weekend trip that are going to be shooting 15 over. I love that. Where do you kind of find yourself as a spectator of golf? Are you more of a group me, or are you more of a, I want to see them actually look like humans?
No, I like the buffet, as you just pointed out. I mean, we can start with the Masters. I mean, they have a really good formula where it's kind of tough on Saturday. I mean, guys have to kind of play well if you're going to shoot a good score on Saturday, but we all know what Sunday is at the Masters. I mean, they set it up for cheers, roars. They want to see birdies and eagles, and that's entertaining. I mean, year in and year out, we usually talk about Sunday at Augusta as one of the best Sundays in golf over the course of that season. And you're right, U.S. Open is difficult. They want to identify the best players in the world, and in their opinion, that's a hard golf course where par is a good score. I kind of like that as well, and the PGA Championship is kind of clearly in the middle of those two. I think they go to classic-type golf courses. This is very much, Southern Hills is very much a U.S. Open-type course. They just dial it back a little bit. It's maybe the U.S. Open light is the way I would put it. So I kind of like all of it because I think variety is good.
Mm-hmm. And when they've had tournaments out at Southern Hills, one thing that's been kind of weird, a lot of them, you've had wire-to-wire winners. And, obviously Rory having a great round one, 5 under. He's still got about an hour until he tees off his second round. Could we have a situation where Rory can actually put 4 great rounds together and can be a wire-to-wire champion of the PGA Championship?
Oh, absolutely. I could. It looks like he's going to end up with the better side of the draw by far. I mean, if you start looking at the scoring splits, I think the wins that we're talking about are supposed to come down. They were supposed to gust to 40 this morning. I don't think they're going to get up that high, but it's dramatically better in the afternoon. So if you can take advantage of that, and you pointed out, him getting off to a good start yesterday was huge. I mean, it's always, you always want to get off to a good start, but for Rory, since he won his last major championship, the 2014 PGA, he has been 35 over par in the first round in the major championships. He has just started every weekend behind the 8 ball, and he's always had to scramble, and he's given himself a couple of opportunities, but every single one of those opportunities came from behind, came with him having to do something special over the weekend. Now that he's in a position where even if he just shoots something average today, if he shoots even par or 1 or 2 under, he's still in a position where he doesn't have to do anything special over the weekend, and I think that's when Rory is at his best.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think this is the farthest anybody's made it into golf conversation today. We've made it 3 back-and-forth questions and answers without bringing up...
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm going to do it. Just go ahead and get the elephant out there. Tiger Woods, not off to a great start. Looked kind of bad yesterday, especially with that leg. How do you think the leg is treating him today, and does he have enough to make the cut today?
I didn't know where you're going. I didn't know if you're going with Phil or Tiger. It could have gone either way.
I mean, I'll go with Phil next. I mean, we'll get both the elephants out of the way.
Now, I'll give you credit. I mean, we're 3 questions in, and you hadn't mentioned either one of them. So that's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
That doesn't happen very often this week. Tiger is going to be an interesting deal because what we saw yesterday is sort of the formula that we saw starting at the Masters, where when he showed up on Monday at the Masters, no one really knew what to expect, and he looked strong, and this swing looked very, very good, and it looked like, wow, this is amazing. After everything he's been through, he's going to come back and play. And I don't think anybody really thought he could contend because it was going to be a level of rust and where he's coming back from. But just being upright for 72 holes, I thought was a victory, but you could see it on the weekend. Those injuries took a toll, and it was a painful weekend. He had to endure a lot, and he talked about it this week. His endurance just bottomed out on the weekend at Augusta, and it impacted his play. It seemed like yesterday that formula was kind of in fast forward, that he started the day and it seemed like he was in good position and it seemed like he was strong. You didn't see much of a limp. The swing looked good. But as the day went by, you just started seeing those same signs. You started to maybe see a grimace. You started to see a little bit of a limp. He even gets to a situation, and Brandel Chambly talked about this last night on Live from where he almost uses the club as a crutch. And, after he hits a shot when he's walking off tee boxes. And I just think this is going to be, at least for the near future, the new normal, because I don't think any of us can quantify how painful this is for him. I think this is what we should expect. Now, I'm not saying that he can't come out today and shoot a decent round and play the weekend, but it's going to be difficult.
And with Tiger, and ultimately, we want to see him succeed. He's been a part of this game for over, now going on almost 3 full decades, and changed this game of golf, made it so much more popular than it was before him. But is it starting to feel like Father Time has ultimately won? To me, it's starting to feel like the last season of Yao Ming's career, of watching him try to go up and down the court with the Houston Rockets, just barely being able to stay on top of his feet. Is it getting to the point where it's almost sad to see him out there struggling the way that he is?
I think it's probably a combination of Father Time and just circumstances. I mean, look, I don't think time had anything to do with that crash last year. That was horrific. Anyone who saw the car, had to marvel at the idea that, number one, that he's walking now. I mean, they talked to him about possibly amputating that left leg after everything that he had been through. And we also need to keep in mind that he was already dealing with a litany of back issues even before that car crash. So there's a number of things that are keeping him from this. I don't know that I would use the word sad, because I still think there's a level of, keep in mind, this is just a second official event since that car crash, and I still think there's, at least for me, there's a level of awe, because, again, I have an idea of everything that he went through just to be here and have the opportunity to play 17 holes at a major championship. And look, he doesn't like that. For him, that sucks. He's not happy with that at all. But the fact of the matter is I think there is still an element to this that, wow, I can't believe he's trying to do this again. My question has been, ever since the weekend at Augusta and watched how much that was labored, how much pain he was obviously in, is why? Why he continues to do this, because it is difficult.
Some people just kind of go back to what's worked for them for all those years. I guess naturally for him, that must be the thing. We haven't even mentioned Scottie Scheffler yet, the Masters champion, and you picked him to win the Masters. Looks like he's going to have trouble even making the cut today.
I think this is an indication of how difficult this golf course is. And Rory talked about this yesterday. Like, the difference between his 65 and a 75 was so marginal that it didn't take a lot for you just to get one bad bounce into the rough. Suddenly you get a flyer, and you put yourself in a bad position, and instead of a birdie, you've got a 5. And for that to happen on maybe 2 or 3 holes over the course of a round, that's kind of the difference between being in contention and missing the cut. And I think that's what we're seeing from Scottie Scheffler right now. Because we were talking about it this morning. I think yesterday's over par round was his first over par round in 2 months on the PGA Tour. And that is eye-opening when you consider the stretch he has been on. But I would put it in context that on this golf course, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, we're seeing, it was amazing how many of the game's stars, John Rahm, Patrick Cantlay, shooting a million, all of these players, very, very good players, top-ranked players who are in form right now. And takes a little bit. They get sideways on this golf course, and it adds up to big numbers.
All right, so I guess we got to ask about Phil Mickelson, just because. We ever going to see him in a PGA event again?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's kind of tough. I think we'll probably see him at the U.S. Open, if I had to guess right now, would be the next option. I mean, we all know his relationship with the USGA, and the USGA is a little bit twisted, so you don't know exactly where his mind is at. I think you asked the question correctly, a PGA Tour event, because I also believe that he's going to play the Live Golf event, which the first one's scheduled for the first week of June, and that's the week before the U.S. Open, and that would be in London. I can imagine a scenario where he plays in London that week and then at least tries to play the U.S. Open. It will be interesting because he's not here this week for obvious reasons. I mean, it's a self-imposed exile, and I'm sure that he just didn't want to show up and answer a ton of questions that he doesn't want to answer, and probably a ton of questions he doesn't have answers to. And I don't know how that changes when we get to Brookline for the U.S. Open.
An amazing amount of hubris that he showed, just kind of openly talking about. I mean, even if he might not have known that the phrase would come out when it came out, because he thought that the book was going to come out around the PGA Championship. But to have the hubris to claim publicly that you're playing these two organizations against each other, and all that he said about the Saudi royal family and everything, it was mind blowing. I mean, it says. I mean, the guy doesn't believe that he can face the consequences for some of these words.
I think the interesting thing for me, and you pointed out, that there are clear lines drawn on the PGA Tour right now. You have those who, maybe not publicly, but by the things they say, you can extrapolate the idea that, he's interested in Live Golf and what this series could possibly become. And then you have those like Rory McIlroy and Jon Rahm who have pledged their allegiance to the PGA Tour. In this particular case, though, he burned down both houses. I mean, he scorched both the PGA Tour and Live Golf, so it makes you wonder exactly where were you trying to go with this? Phil has always got a plan. Every time he's walked into a media center for a press conference, he's always had an agenda. I don't know what his agenda could have possibly been in this situation. Now, according to Phil, that conversation was off the record, but he did not say he was misquoted, and I don't know how he was taken out of context, given the idea that you were critical of both tours. And I don't know where you were I just don't know what he was trying to do with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't completely understand it because just the amount of stuff that, one, to try to build up this Live Tour that you did against the PGA, and then to come out and, like you said, burn down that house too. Well, you got to have some place to live, and it's not going to be at the PGA, and it might not be with the Live. Rex, before we let you go, I do have to ask, because otherwise we'd be kicked out of the state of Arkansas for not asking about John Daly in a tournament that he's playing.
JD.
Yeah, what do you think of his first round? He went 2 over, still has a chance to make the cut. You think we see him on the weekend?
I think we do, and it's amazing. There's something about this championship that brings out the best and competitive side of JD. And watching him yesterday, it's fun to watch him sort of turn back the clock. And this is someone who has struggled with injury over the last few years, so we're clearly never going to see the best of JD again, certainly not at this age. And this is a big golf course even for John. I mean, he was the longest back in his day, but he's really not anymore, not by modern tour standards. But it was fun. I mean, certainly he's entertaining. When you talk about players that move the needle, he is still among that group, which is pretty amazing, considering how long it's been since he was, relevant at all on the PGA Tour. It's going to be difficult, but as I pointed out, he's on the right side of the draw, so I hope he takes advantage of that.
Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.